Welcome, I'm your host Sarah Lean and I'm here with my guest Haley Rowland and Jeff Woolsey and we're talking about managing your hybrid environment with Windows Admin Center. Welcome both.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So for those that don't know what Windows Admin Center is, could you give us a brief overview of it, please?
Absolutely. So Windows Admin Center is this tool that allows us to do some amazing things. It has its own built-in core management tools. So for example, things to actually manage Windows servers, core tools that people are used to, including managing roles and features. So enabling features, enabling roles, all of those types of things. In addition, we've also spent a lot of time enabling hybrid and adding hybrid connectivity and capabilities. And then finally, we've also been partnering with our many partners. And one of the things that we've been doing, in fact, this week, we've been announcing new partner extension plugins for Admin Center. So last year we had Lenovo, Fujitsu, DataOn, and many more. Now we actually have Dell and HPE joining as well. And so today, what we really wanted to focus on was we actually wanted to spend some time focus on the hybrid aspects of Windows Admin Center because there are just so many things and lots of great announcements this week.
Yep, sounds very exciting.
That's right. We've added so much value to our hybrid capabilities in Windows Admin Center that we actually created a centralized hub within Windows Admin Center to see all of those tools. So from within Windows Admin Center, we have this Azure Hybrid Services tool. And what that does is take all of the many Azure services that are out there, and we curate that list down to just those services that bring value to your on-prem and hybrid environment. So you'll see things like Azure Site Recovery, Azure Monitor, and we'll get into some of these in a little bit. Yeah.
Awesome.
And one of the reasons we did this was, initially we had a feature or two, but then we kept adding more and more, and we kept talking about these hybrid capabilities, and customers would go, well, wait a minute, Jeff, if I want to check out this hybrid network, I have to go into the network tool. If I want to do backup, I got to go to the backup tool. If I want to do VM replication, I have to go to the VM tool. Can you give us one singular view that's going to show us all of these different services in one place? So that's what the Azure Hybrid Services tool is all about. Your one-stop shopping for hybrid capabilities in Admin Center.
Awesome.
So when we think about hybrid, we actually put it into kind of two different scenarios, core scenarios. One of these is about extending on-premises into Azure. So for example, customers come to us and they go, I would love to be able to use it for business continuity and disaster recovery, for example. And so things like Azure Site Recovery allow us to do VM replication right into Azure. And this is really important because it's really funny, over the years I've talked really to two types of DR customers. The first customer is the one that says to me, Jeff, I don't have $100 million to invest in a brand new data center. The second customer is the one who's already invested the $100 million and says, I don't want to do this anymore, this is really, really expensive. And I don't want to have to manage that. So I would love to be able to move all of this into Azure. So Azure Site Recovery gives you the ability to do exactly that. And then of course we have Azure Backup. So Azure Backup allows you to just use the cloud to give you, all of the backup you need very quickly and very easily, and we'll show that off in just a second, as well as Storage Replica, which provides block-based storage replication, both synchronous and asynchronous replication. And so when we look at a number of these ways to protect your environment from disaster and business continuity, it starts with ASR. And ASR is literally select a virtual machine, so select your subscription in your region, and I want to protect this VM, and I immediately begin replicating in the cloud. I didn't need to set up a secondary data center, I didn't need to set up any hosts or any information there. Literally, Azure becomes that target.
And the benefit of Azure Site Recovery is that I'm actually replicating, and I'm just replicating that data into a storage account. So I'm paying for the storage in Azure, but I'm not actually paying for any compute until I have to do that failover. So I get to save a lot of those compute costs until I actually need to use them.
That's a really important point, because a lot of people assume that, oh, I've got to pay for the compute and the storage and the networking. No, you're only paying for the storage that's being replicated. It's only when the disaster occurs and you actually fire up those VMs that you're actually paying for compute. So that's an important point, thank you. And then on Azure Backup, backup is allowing you to do backups, and most importantly, it's giving you checkpoints in time. And I get this question asked all the time, if I'm doing Azure Site Recovery, I'm actually replicating VMs, do I need to do backup? You absolutely need to do both. If your target gets corrupt, you're basically replicating corrupt data into the cloud to wherever that secondary data center site is. So you want to make sure you're actually doing both. If you're doing backup, that means if something does get corrupt, you have a point-in-time snapshot you can go back to recover from. And so those are Azure Site Recovery and Backup, and then we have Storage Replica. And this is for folks that want to use traditional, synchronous and asynchronous replication into the cloud for your traditional storage appliances. This allows you to do exactly all of that together with Azure. So we've been really focused on making sure that we have these great disaster and business continuity capabilities built into Admin Center.
Excellent.
And so the first one I wanted to quickly focus on was Azure Backup. And I'm not kidding when I say it's easy. This is the setup screen. This is all you need to do. You basically log in, choose your region, choose your subscription. How often do you want to backup? Is this a daily backup? Is this a weekly backup? Is this an hourly backup, okay? And what's the retention policy? Am I going to keep this around for a week, a month, 6 months, a year? You determine that. Basically, we keep it relatively simple. But we also added some really smart, intelligent security features. So one of the things that's been a real concern for customers has been ransomware. And so with ransomware, what they're basically trying to do is they're trying to encrypt your data and get you to pay for it. But in addition, they look for your backups and delete your backups. And so we looked at this and said, there's an opportunity for us to do something even better to help protect the customer's data. So when you actually create an Azure backup in the workflow, it asks you to put in a passphrase. So when you go to delete that backup, you're prompted for the passphrase. Well, if there's ransomware trying to delete, it can't, because you literally have to type in the passphrase. And in addition, it's actually a nice secondary check to make sure no one accidentally deletes it anyways. Yeah. Are you really sure you want to delete this backup? So we got you covered there.
Awesome.
Actually, Azure Backup will keep your deleted data, I believe, for a couple of weeks to make sure that you don't accidentally delete anything.
Yes, there's an actual extra insurance policy because we've already had this happen many times where people have deleted and said, whoops, I didn't really mean to do that. And we said, good, because we kept it around for an additional couple weeks and you can still recover it. But then after that, it's gone.
Okay.
Finally, we get to Azure Site Recovery. And Site Recovery is something we've had since very early on in Admin Center. It was one of our first hybrid capabilities. Customers love the fact that it's literally, wow, just click on a VM, click Protect, and I'm ready to go. Well, one of the brand new features we added in Windows Admin Center 19.10, the brand new release that we just announced this week at Ignite, is we now support clusters as well. So if you've got clustered VMs, guess what? We've got you all covered, taken care of. Azure Site Recovery will take care of those as well. So those are just the few things we think about for extending on-premises into Azure, but there's more. Haley, what are some of those?
Yeah, so let's talk about the other kind of direction of how you can use Azure to be your centralized management plane for both your hybrid investments, but as well as your on-prem investments. So the way that we've integrated that within Windows Admin Center is from security, monitoring, updating, and of course, governing. And so let's take a look at Azure Security Center first to kind of see how this plays into Windows Admin Center and what the value is that you get from the Azure centralized management plane. So of course, Azure Security Center is going to be monitoring your on-premises servers. Basically, you're sending up data, and then Azure Security Center, with all of its cloud intelligence and its scale, can actually use that intelligence to monitor your on-premises servers and give you alerts and recommendations so that you're best protected and you are made aware of alerts as soon as they occur. Okay. So let's take a look at Windows Admin Center, how I actually set this up. So from within here, I see I'm in the Azure Security Center tool in Admin Center, and it's as easy as clicking Sign into Azure and Set Up. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm already signed in. So I just have to choose my subscription and the workspace I want to use. So this is referring to the Log Analytics workspace in Azure, which is the workspace, which is where the data is stored in Azure. I'll go ahead and click Set Up. And now it's just going to automatically install the agent that I need and then connect to any existing or create new resources in Azure to actually set up the entire Azure Security Center solution. And so now I get this centralized, or I get this server-specific view where I can see both my recommendations and alerts on this specific server, right? And so because I just set that up, I can't actually see any recommendations yet. But let's hop over into the Azure Security Center in the portal, which I have a hyperlink here right within Windows Admin Center. So now I'm within the Azure Security, I'm going to head into the Azure Security Center in the Azure portal. And here I get a centralized view across all of my assets within within the Azure Security Center. So I see my policy and my compliance, my security and hygiene, as well as threat protection across all of my investments. And I can drill in to see my compute and applications. And let's go ahead and take a look at my VMs and computers. And here I can see that I'm both monitoring Azure VMs as well as non-Azure VMs that are connected to Azure Security Center. And of course, if I head back into Windows Admin Center here, I'll see an alert has popped up. And so I can actually scroll into this, and again, this is a hyperlink that I can click to take me back into the Azure portal where I get additional details about this security alert. So it tells me all sorts of things like the severity of this alert and details like the username and even the suspicious command line here that was run so that I can easily remediate that. So that's just kind of one example of how Azure and Windows Admin Center can work hand in hand to give you both that centralized view in Azure and that server-specific view from Windows Admin Center. And that kind of applies to everything that we've added with Azure Monitor, Azure Update Management, and of course, Azure Arc for servers with Azure Policy.
And one really cool thing, Sarah, when you saw Haley go through the process of actually deploying the agent and doing all that, did you see her actually log into the server?
No.
No. She was doing all of that remotely. I mean, that's the beauty of what we're doing with Admin Center. We are deploying agents. So for example, in Azure Security Center, deploying the agent, registering with Azure, configuring it all there, and then providing you the exact right hyperlink from Admin Center to take you right into the Azure portal to see that whole group view. So you can see lots of different resources running in Azure. When you want to come back to that single view, click right back into Admin Center, and now I'm in that focus view. This is also true for other hybrid capabilities we've enabled. For example, Azure Arc, something we've been talking about, a huge release this week. Lots of people are really excited what we're doing with Azure Arc. It's the same way. From Admin Center, I can actually go to a Windows server and say, oh, by the way, deploy Azure Arc. It will install the agent, no reboots required. I don't need to log into the server at all. It's doing it all remotely from my Windows 10 laptop and registering with Azure. And so we do that for things like Azure Security Center, we do that for Azure Backup, we do that for Arc, of course. We also do that for Azure File Sync. So for example, if you want to set up virtually bottomless storage for your file servers, you can configure Azure File Sync all from Admin Center. You installs the agent, manages the agent, configures all of your cloud tiering policy, configures the storage account, does all of these things all from Admin Center without ever leaving the context. And when you want to go check it out on Azure, we give you the link, takes you to the right location, and so you can use these back and forth. So really, what you're seeing here is these huge investments we're making in both extending on-premises into Azure, as well as centrally managing from Azure as well. And really our goal with the latter is we want to create this, with Azure Arc, is to create this consistent cloud management plane to manage all of your resources everywhere.
Yeah. I'm very jealous. In a previous job, I had to manage hundreds of servers, and I'd often have multiple RDP windows open, MMC, PowerShell windows, and having this tool, I'm very jealous of the people that have to manage servers now because they have one tool to do it.
Yes.
Definitely true, and we hear that from customers all the time. They're like, you have made our lives so much easier, and especially, as we go on this hybrid and modernization journey, being able to have this kind of right in front of you and know that Windows Admin Center is doing the best possible setup for you really helps out that journey.
And Sarah, you bring up a really good point. It's probably something we don't talk enough about from the Admin Center side, but you mentioned multiple RDP windows. If you're using the traditional tools, MMC, basically the client and server are coupled. So for example, if you were managing 2008 R2, you had to have the MMCs for Windows 7. If you're using Windows Server 2019, you have to have the MMCs for Windows 10. If you're managing Windows Server 2012 R2, you have to have the MMCs for 8.1. And so you have multiple jump boxes, multiple versions of tools. Admin Center does all of this. One version manages all the way back to 2008 R2. So we continue to work very closely to make sure that Admin Center is the future for all server management. And lastly, I just want to point out, while we've talked about a whole bunch of hybrid capabilities, more is on the way. We are not done by any stretch of the imagination.
Excellent. So if people want to get a hold of Windows Admin Center, where do they go? How can they get it?
Oh, absolutely. If they want to download it, here it is.
Yeah, aka.ms/Windows Admin Center. And keep in mind that this actually comes with your Windows Server license at no additional cost.
Wait a minute, say that one more time. How much does this cost, Haley?
No additional cost.
So everything we just showed you is free?
Pretty much.
Because it's included with your Windows or Windows Server license, so you really can't go wrong. So please download Windows Admin Center and get started today.
Awesome. Thank you. I'd love to talk to you all day, but we unfortunately have to kind of wrap up. So thank you for taking the time out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. So let's check in with our community reporter, Amy, who has a very special guest with a very bright future.
Okay.